Hi everybody. Hi. Welcome to another Getting Raw with Stacia live. I'll just wait for some persons to come on before I actually start. Hi Miss Ziri, Daydree. Just waiting on a few persons to log on before we start. As usual in the hi, I see my guest, hey, I see my guest. In the meantime, while we wait on some persons to log on, just let us know where you're tuning in from, what parish, what state, what province. Put it in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. You can also share the live by you clicking on the bottom right hand corner. You'll see an icon that looks like a paper airplane. Click on that and you can share it with your friends and family. Anybody who you feel needs to hear the information tonight, because our guest will be sharing some valuable, healthy, wealthy information on the raw food, live food, lifestyle. So share the live, and I'll give about 30 seconds for some more persons to come on before I just start. Okay, perfect. So what I'm doing right now is just sending out to a few persons, and you can do the same. All right, perfect. So hi everybody. I'm going to get started. Everybody else can join in while we get started. Hi Danishka, hi Kadeen, hi Fashionista. Oh, Maryland in the house, Michigan in the house, Kingston, Jamaica in the house. You can put where you're joining us from, so we have an idea of the audience, how global we are. Miami in the house. All right, let me get started. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Stacia Alicia, the founder and lead coordinator of Raw Food Challenge JA and the 21 Days Raw. In January 2019, I decided to change to a plant-based vegan lifestyle, and it has transformed my mind and body. Now I'm on a mission to get as many people as is possible inspired to just make healthier lifestyle choices, and one of the not just for looks but for their overall well-being. And one of the ways I'm doing this is via the 21 Days Raw that I am coordinating from May 1 to May 21. For those who have not yet registered, please do so. What you can do is click the link in my bio and you can register. Hi Lachelle, big up Lachelle. Right, so let me just give you an idea of what the 21 Days Raw is about. So Raw, what will happen in the 21 Days Raw is that we will be eating live raw foods. So that means fresh fruits and vegetables, seeds, nuts, live. We'll not be eating meat, whether fish is included in that. No dairy, no yogurt, no baked goods, none of those things. You'll be saying yes to your fresh fruits and your raw veg, your nuts, your seeds, your sprouted or soaked. Yeah, that's what we'll be saying yes to. Live foods, living foods and juices. That's what we'll be saying yes to. Oh, we have some MiHungry lovers in the house. Big up. Yeah. So right, and what inside the 21 days raw, of course, you'll have a community of support and accountability, because we know what to do, but we just don't do it. We know that we're not eating properly, but we just don't do it. So with a community of people who are on the same mission as you, the same wellness journey as you, it's more easier and it's more likely for you to get it done because you're not alone, right? So we have our community of support and accountability. Yes, you can drink coconut water, palm water. Yes, you can, right? So I'm answering Sebastian, by the way, right? So you'll be getting a raw juice and smoothie guide, meal ideas, simple raw recipes that anyone can follow, raw tips to help you stay on track. This is a very good aspect now. You'll be getting daily group workout sessions from our fitness and wellness trainers. So big up Ginger Fitness Lifestyle, DOB Fitness, and Joanna of I Am Tailor Made. Big them up because they came on board. In the community, you'll have access to them, or professional trainers, wellness coaches, and weight loss specialists. You'll have the community, and you'll be paired with an accountability partner as well. Apart from the wider group, you'll have an accountability partner. We'll have access to giveaways and discounts. And big up MiHungry, who came on board. And for participants, for people who have registered, they'll be getting a 10% discount on purchases made by MiHungry, made at and from MiHungry. So big up MiHungry. And also I want to big up Fruit Blossoms JA, who is also on board as a sponsor, and Dr. Denise Daly of Nazarene Naturals. So bigging up my sponsors, and thank you, Deidre, for posting the sponsors on the follow them, follow all the sponsors, please. That's Ginger Fitness Lifestyle, DOB Fitness, Joanna Taylor, MiHungry Now, Fruit Blossoms JA, and Dr. Denise Daly. Follow them. All right, let's go to. And remember to register for the challenge. Click the link in the bio to sign up. Before we start, I usually start with a disclaimer. So nobody can sue us. But the disclaimer is individual results are not guaranteed and may vary from person to person. The information that you're receiving is informational and is in no way intended to be medical advice. Before making any changes to your diet, you should consult your physician or health practitioner. The perspectives shared herein are our own personal experiences and opinions, and we are not physicians. Your health is your priority, so you can listen, you can take what you hear, but your health is your priority. So again, big up everybody who is on. I say hi to Shauna. Right? All right. So let's start. Let's begin. My guest tonight is the owner of the most prominent raw food restaurant in the country, MiHungry Whol-Some-Food. And as I said before, they're one of our sponsors. I'm so excited about that because last year when I've bought from MiHungry before, but last year when I did my 40 days raw challenge, from there on, I was a consistent customer. since last year when I did the 40 days raw challenge. It's now 21 days, but last year it was 40 days raw, and I have been consistent. So I'm glad, I'm happy say MiHungry is on board. So yes, normally I do an intro of the like a bio of the guest, but I really want him to speak. I really want him to share tonight. So I will ask him questions, but also I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask your questions. And some of you had indicated some questions that you wanted to ask already, so I'll ask some of those. But I am thinking that tonight I'll do things a bit different and actually allow some people to come on to ask their questions. So let me bring on my guest, Iwara of MiHungry, Whol-Some-Food. Let me bring him on. All right, waiting on. Oh, hi.
Greetings. How are we doing?
I am so excited to have, like you can tell, so I'm just happy to say the odd.
Yeah, man, on board as usual. Yeah, man.
Before we start, can everybody put some fruits in the comment? Because we now make him start talk to me some fruits and some fruits in the comments. Make put some fruits in the comments. Let me put my fruits. Yes, I see melon.
Let's see what I put up my favorite.
I see what that coconut. Listen, I'm not making him start until I see the fruits, you know. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, man. Yo, big up. Somebody write dragon fruit, them can't find that. All right, Iwara, thanks again for coming on. I'm just going to start first, since I never do a whole intro. You can just tell us just a little bit, don't go in too deep, but just a little bit about yourself. Who is Iwara? I would pronounce the other, like I know it's Iwara, ma'am, but I can't pronounce that middle one, but it's Hakari. Can you tell us what your name is first, so that everybody can hear your actual full name?
Yeah, it's Iwara Mamer Tafari.
Oh, Mamer. Okay.
Mamer. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so, you were saying I should just tell people about who I am?
Yeah, a little, because I'm going to ask you questions, but just a little bit about yourself.
Well, I mean, for the most part, all I know, I'm a truth seeker, and it had led me down a journey from I was 16 years old to, you know, I've gone vegan. And for the most part, I like finding solutions to problems. And I think that also made me take the journey of becoming a software developer, which I don't know if a lot of persons know that I'm a software programmer.
I was going to ask about it. All right, go on.
And so, you know what, on the journey of food, I also have worked with individuals in terms of sharing my experience, you know, and basically that's me in a nutshell. I'm a Rastafarian. I don't know that everybody knows me. That's true. I declare that outright, you know. And yeah, this is it. I mean, I am one of the family members of who owns MiHungry, and I don't want to say one of the family member because because I have my brothers, and it's a big family. My partner, there's a big family, so I'm one of the family member, you know.
All right.
So
So
Yeah, man.
a co-owner then, a co-owner.
Yeah, co-owner. Yeah,
All
man.
right.
And the community own it as well, because we all share responsibility to them.
What? Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Um, I read I read in an article because I was trying to research and I read in
Yeah.
an article where you said that humans are not omnivores. Can you please expound on that? Because I don't know if you still have that same philosophy now, but if you do, can you please expound on that?
All right. So what happened is that, I mean, I really think the only way there's two ways I think you can really decide and, really identify what you're able to eat. And it's through intuition, which is first. I mean, and it's through scientific data. I mean, through physiology or anatomy. And when we look at the physiology and the anatomy of it, which is the science of it, it generally just match up back with your intuition. So you're just using it to validate your intuition. And so the only way, how you decide on which group you fall into is when you semototype. And semototyping is grouping animals based upon their features, their body type, their anatomy. And so we're not omnivorous and we're not carnivorous because it's just every other animal who fit within that category. There are certain unique identifiers that you see with them. And we have not find ourselves with these unique identifiers from an anatomy and a physiology point of view. So, and one of the most prominent one is the fact that our liver does not produce uricase. And uricase is a liver enzyme that is used to convert uric acid into something more water soluble so that your kidneys can find it easier to filter that out. So every dog, every lion, every tiger, whether they're carnivorous or omnivorous, they live because most omnivores still retain more than 75% of their carnivorous trait. And all of them, whether omnivorous or carnivorous out there, their liver produce uricase. And one of the conditions that you end up with if you're on a diet that requires uricase to convert your uric acid into allantoin, which is the water soluble byproduct when it is converted. It is gout, and gout is basically, a lot of persons come down with gout, and the gout is when your body has been filled with uric acid and your kidneys becomes very, can't deal with filtering that anymore, and it leaves it and it runs down and it settles in the toes. Normally it's in your big toe first. But you'll never find a lion or a tiger or a dog with gout. And you see, not only is that us as humans do not produce uricase, the truth about it is too, there's no cow, there's no camel, there's no horse. So you find that none of the vegetarian or frugivarians, the frugivores, produce uricase. So that's just that's just science. That's just how natural it is. So when I say we're not omnivorous, I'm not talking from the point of view of what we do, because people tend to categorize who we are based upon what we are doing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if your physiology, if your anatomy is suggesting that. And when that, so those are the things that why I said that. And I could tell you about 30
No,
different
I want to listen tonight is lecture,
Okay.
You said you said
Like
you gave us one reason with the liver.
Right, the liver doesn't produce uricase.
What's the other? I want to know the others, and I'm sure the other persons on would want to know the others because a lot of people are of the thinking, I would say misconception, but you know, I have to be political, right? So I say the thinking that we were made to eat animals. So I want you to actually read, to expound.
Yeah, well, I mean, what happened, as I said, no. So if you look at it now, let's look at, say, for example, the jaw, where the jaw joint of a carnivore or omnivore is positioned in comparison to that of a frugivore or a herbivore. And what you find is that the jaw joint of a carnivore or omnivore is hinged, the two jaw is hinged at the molar teeth, right at the molar teeth. So what that does is that it gives them a shear-like, scissors-like position. So the jaws of carnivores really has, if you think about a scissors and where the two blades are joined, that's exactly how the jaw joint of carnivores and omnivores are attached. So what it is that it prevents them from having sideways movements. You can't move a scissors blade side to side. So it's really a slicing, a cutting action. And so carnivores, they do not masticate. Omnivores, they basically cut, chop, and swallow. And what happened is that all frugivore, all herbivore, and man, I'm saying, they have the ability to move their mouth from side to side. And the reason why we have that ability is because our jaw joint is hinged above the molar teeth. So what it does is that it gives the jaw an ability to swing. And so if you know, we can throw water in our mouth and switch that around. So we can switch around water. And if you look at cow, when he's chewing his cud, it's going all over the place. Well, a carnivore can't do that. The carnivore can't do that. Now, it's funny now, when we're going to look at that feature, what we are also going to see come into place is that carbohydrates, right, which is from your fruits and your vegetables, the breakdown of that starts from within the mouth. So you have your saliva, which breaks down your carbs, which is like amylase and so forth. And what that means is that we have those kind of carbohydrate splitting enzymes within our saliva. So mastication is the first place where the breaking down or form of digestion is taking place for us. Now, when you look at meat, or what we call, you know, animal protein, the digestion of that takes place within the gut when there's peptin in the stomach. So there's no need for them to masticate. So now you find that they do not have the ability to chew, masticate, go up and down. They just chop and swallow. But there's no need, because protein is not taking any digestion within that mouth. While, on the other hand, your carbohydrate should start its breaking down from within the saliva. And that means it's perfect why we needs to masticate. So that's three different features. We mentioned uricase, we mentioned the position of the jaw joint, and now we realize why the jaw joint is positioned and allowing one to do the other and one not to do it. You realize that the person who is supposed to be chewing, they actually break down fruits and vegetables by masticating. So it's by design. Another thing is that you can look at the facial muscle. All carnivores and omnivores, they have less developed facial muscle in comparison to you and I. So our facial muscle is very well developed. And what that does is that for a carnivore, because his facial muscle is not so well developed, he has a very wide mouth opening comparative to his head size. So if you think about a dog, or when they open their mouth very wide, it can go all the way back. It's like, you know, a clamp going back. You just try that for me. You try to open your mouth as if you're going to do it. And when you open it, hold it for 5 seconds. And by the time you start to stretch it, right at the corner of your jaw, it starts to pain you. Anybody that tries to push their mouth opening beyond. So that's not the mouth opening size of a true hunter, a true carnivore, right? So we have a more developed facial muscle, and which prevent us from giving us that wide mouth opening. And so that's one thing. Another thing is we could also look at the length of the digestive tract. Now, carnivores' digestive tract are generally 1 to 3 times their body length. Some omnivores go up to 5. But what happens is that when we are talking about body length, we're talking from the mouth to the tail of the animal or the torso. So with us, our digestive tract length is generally like 10 to 12. That's how different. And one of the reasons for the short digestive tract length by carnivores and omnivores is for the rapid transitioning of meat. Us, you know, a cow, a herbivore, is even longer than us. And this is where you can also realize that man is more fruit eating than vegetarian. So man is more naturally a fruit eating being, right? Because
so my intuition was right, because I'm just loving fruits.
Yeah, but I mean, if everybody asks themselves the hunger question and ask themselves if they find themselves here on earth with a very blank and unconditioned mind, nobody had ever said anything to you about food. And you close your eyes and hunger came upon you, and that's natural, that's going to happen. And when you open your eyes to respond to this hunger question, you see cows in a pasture, you see goats running around, you see grass, greenery, whether you call it kale, spinach, callaloo, and you see these beautiful things hanging from tree with different colors, you know, apples, mangoes, sneezeberries. Which is the thing that you think you would naturally have an affinity towards? Would you think you look in the cow and go, wow, in the pasture with the cows and go, wow, dinner? I mean, you won't salivate, you know? And you won't even be attracted to that green grass, that vegetarian type thing, because it's really more for a herbivore, you know? But what happened is that we have a lot of herbivorous features still, so we can accommodate it. But if you're talking about what is closer to our makeup and our physiology, then definitely fruit. We naturally eat that. Just like our herbivore, which is a cow, naturally eats grass, and a carnivore naturally eats meats. The only thing man really naturally eat as is and could live on it all day is fruits.
Wow. Wow. Right. Look at that. I'm in tune with my intuition.
Right. Yeah, man. So that's really it. We're really fruit eating beings. There is no food on the planet which is really higher in its consciousness than fruits. So as I was saying, as I was saying to you, so well, we could go far and far into features, but that's like something that, you know, we could go further and further into it. But just to say that there's enough that shows that our anatomy and our physiology doesn't suggest anything else except that we are herbivorous, and more specifically for the primates, we are more frugivorous.
Wow. So what about, I wanted to ask these questions at the end, you know, but since we're there, what about people who say you can't get all the nutrition from fruits?
So you can't get all the nutrition from fruits. Okay. I mean, I think that's just something that's been parading and we accept it, but I like to look from things a scientific way. I just don't want to hear that you can't do it, and then when I ask why, you know, scientifically we have to look at this and whether this is true or not. So I mean, most persons, let's look at it, what most persons here would have been exposed to some kind of tertiary or like a high school level, you know, institution in Jamaica, and we remember doing biology. And one thing we must admit is that we are nothing but cells. right? And we learned that your eyes are cells, your nose are cells, your lips, your hands, your fingernails. So we are all cells. And I don't know if we can all remember, but we can consult our notes or go back to our biology teachers and ask them. And one thing is always predominant and sure is that the way how you gives your cell energy is that you give your cell carbon. So it is carbon plus oxygen that is equal to ATP, adenosine triphosphate energy. That is cell energy. Because your cells cannot use carbon directly as it is. So in the presence of oxygen, it's now converted. And when it converts into cell energy. Now you could not replace that formula. You could not take out carbon and put protein in that formula. You know? So I'm yet to see why people are saying we can't get the nutrients from fruits. I don't know which nutrients they're talking. Most times it's the protein argument, which is really, there's just so much thing to that protein argument that we could argue from now till tomorrow, but we could look at it from a scientific point of view and say, first of all, right, we have a periodic table of elements, right? And we're saying that everything in life basically comes from our periodic table elements. So these elements are the fundamentals. They are the fundamentals. And one of the things we can do is that when we look at our periodic table, protein has been defined as the building block of life. And so when you hear that statement, it gives the indication that protein is fundamental, like it is at the base level. It must be present. Now, when you look at your periodic table of elements, you can find some element called zinc. You'll have magnesium. You'll have potassium, calcium, you know, iron. I can't remember one of my elements called protein. And so it's not, for me, it's not a first element. And there goes, if it's not a first element, then to say it is like the building block of life, it's kind of misleading, because the periodic table of elements is what all other elements are derived from. So that's another thing. And then now when we look at mother's breast milk, right? Now, I think the most, what I would call the most fickle, you know, stage of a life is like at birth. At that time, you're just coming out and trying to build and so forth. And so if protein is so important, right, then we've been told, and like in Jamaica, I know when you go to Jubilee Hospital, everywhere you go and they make sure you cannot miss this. You have paste up on the walls. Do not give a baby nothing except mother's breast milk for the very first 6 months. Nothing else, not even water. And if you feed a baby that's just birthed on mother's breast milk for 6 months and nothing else, you'll see that that baby is gonna pull himself or herself up after 6 months. And you could continue feeding them on breast milk only. Now, in that case, when we examine the components of mother's breast milk and when we break it down, right, less than 1% of mother's breast milk is considered protein. I think it's about 0.8 to 0.9. With 7 point something percent is sugar, is carbon, is carbohydrate. Sugar, like a fruit, you know. In fruits, we call that a fructose. In vegetable, we say glucose, and in mother's breast milk, we call that a galactose, which is a milk sugar. So my point is that if everywhere we look in nature, when we're looking at it, even at baby stage, the baby is given less than 1% of what is considered protein and more of what is considered sugar, carbohydrates. And that's what a vegetarian is doing. It's taking in its carbohydrates more than its protein more. Protein is really our problem more than our solution right now, because protein is formed through bonded chemistry And so, you know, every time I hear people say, you know, where you're gonna get your protein, you need to eat protein. It's almost like if your hair is falling out, if your hair is falling out, you wouldn't say you need to eat some hair because you're losing your hair. You wouldn't do that because that's not how it works. And when you eat protein because you want protein, that's not how it goes. That's not how the whole chemistry of food works. What's supposed to happen is that, you know, and you're really supposed to eat the amino acids, and when they get incorporated into your body tissue, then they form the protein bonds. It's not the other way around when you're eating protein that is already formed into another animal's body tissue. And then your body is going to try to strip back that down to its polypeptide and its peptide and down to amino acids. So it's really, you know, the same question would have to ask a cow where it's getting its protein. It's the same question you have to ask, where are you getting your protein? The cow just eat grass, and we have never heard anybody saying the cow is short on protein. Right? So the protein argument doesn't hold up. The science is showing that carbon is what feeds cells, carbohydrates. So the science is showing it. Mother's breast milk in its ratio is showing that. I mean, we do have some amino acids in our fruits, because another contrary thing is that, you know, and we can hold up our hand and say this to the world, that there is no protein without vegetables. So there's no possibility to have proteins without vegetables. So when I hear meat-eating people looking at vegetarians and say, oh, so where are you going to get your protein? It's a laughter. It's a big laughter. Because if you think about how protein is formed, protein is actually formed when nitrogen, which is in the atmosphere, nitrogen is pulled down to the earth. And when that is pulled to the earth, then there is soil splitting bacteria that breaks the nitrogen, and then the plants now pull this nitrogen up through its roots and incorporate it in the plant. And the only thing that has the ability to pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere into the soil is plants. So plants is at the beginning of it. And that is why in biology class, if you are given a food chain to do, you can't get anybody marking your paper to even look at your food chain if you didn't start it off with plants. Plants must be at the beginning of the food chain, because it's the only thing that has the possibility to convert like sunlight energy to bring down its nitrogen down in the soil and create food. So when that nitrogen comes down into the earth and the soil splitting bacteria splits it and the soil roots pull it up into the plants, the amino acids now is incorporated into the fruits. But what happened is that, just like mother's breast milk, the ratio is very small. It's very small. Like mother's breast milk with like less than 1% and 7 point something sugar, that's how your fruits are. It's so small that we think it's insignificant. It is not insignificant. What it is that that's the proper balance, because nitrogen and protein is on our acid side of chemistry. Right? And so the properties of an acid element is that it is aggressive, it is corrosive, and it tears things apart. While on the other side, which is the base side, or what we call alkaline, which is our calcium and our magnesiums and so forth, the properties of those groups are that they are nurturing, and they actually will neutralize an acid. No, you can't have acid dominance. I mean, and that's why for all this time we have always referred to the acid side of chemistry as our male side, and the base side we have referred to it as the female side, because it's more nurturing, you know. And so life has to be more female dominant if we do otherwise. Yeah, I mean, it's true. If we get life to be more acid dominant, then it means that it is more aggressive and it is more corrosive and it will tear things apart more. And that's what we see happening when we're having acid rain People say their skin are burning them. If the environment in which you breathe becomes too acidic, then your lungs is going to fail. So the acid burns. Acid is going to tear you up. So if you are eating too acidic, you're going to be in trouble. And protein is on the acid side. So, I mean, you can't push protein. That's just not going to make it. Every time I hear we're having a problem think about like the coronavirus. Whenever they're talking about they're coming up with a vaccine before now, you hear them saying, we're going to have to isolate the protein within the virus. You know, the other day, Dr. Lowe, that is here in Jamaica, who got a patent for his cancer procedure or treatment in the US. When I read the article, they actually said that Dr. Lowe was able to isolate the protein within the cancer. You know, so to be honest with you, the protein argument is something now that if we look at it from a scientific point of view, you leave that out the road. Most people need to get off those protein stuff. Definitely off it. It's not base chemistry. It's not nurturing, you know. And every time you're basically taking in more protein, you're raising the level of acidity in the system. Inflammation is going to chip in. Protein is, you know, when we have persons who are ill and we take them off protein, then they start to get rid of their pains for the most part. Or, you know, they see lesser issues with, and what issues still remain is generally a residual of how bad they were burnt in the first place.
Okay. So what about persons who say that there's too much sugar in fruits, so that can that's just as bad as eating
well, I mean, yeah, but I mean you can't just say sugar. Sugar is not just sugar. Sugar is carbon. I mean, it's carbon, and it is the main essential fuel for cells. And then, I mean, first of all, if you think about it, right, there is a reason why we refer to a fructose, like a fruit sugar, as a monosaccharide. And mono meaning one, and saccharide meaning sugar. A vegetable sugar, we refer to that as like a glucose sugar. We'll call that a disaccharide. And di meaning two, and saccharide is sugar. So it's made up of two sugar molecules. While, you know, a simple fruit sugar can be one sugar molecule. When it touches like your yams and your potatoes and so forth, we refer to those as polysaccharide. You know, like a man who is polygamous, it means many, right? So it's many sugar molecules. Now, what happens is that the simpler it is, it's the best for the body. Because every time you have bonding chemistry with molecular structure, then your body has to strip or break that bond to utilize. Because if you eat a complex carbohydrate, your body is always trying to bring it back down to a simple sugar, because that's how it knows to handle it. So that's why fruit sugar is the closest to pure energy. Because there's no stripping down and trying to break it back down and so forth. Hence the reason why when somebody eat a plate of yam and dumpling and these starches, then they, you know, the whole idea of what is called niggeritis. Yeah. And I not just feel full, but they want to sleep because they have just robbed themselves of energy trying to break all that bond. So, you know, the term that they use, niggeritis, but it's not appropriately named because we can realize that the same phenomena take place in other areas. Like in Mexico, they give you siesta time. After lunch, they say siesta time. You get an hour to recover. You're recovering from this situation. And that's what siesta is about. So what I'm saying now is that if you're saying that the sugar is too bad, now what is it is that the fruit sugar is actually superior to your polysaccharides and your glucose sugar, which is your, you know, your vegetable sugar. So vegetables from a carbohydrate standpoint is a more inferior sugar than fruit sugar. And that is why I can feed a type 1 diabetes on fruits and don't have problems. they will glucose overload for very probably the first week. But after that, they won't have any problems as much. You know why? Because fructose sugar, it is so superior that it is insulin independent. So somebody who is not producing enough insulin, because there's no stripping down and have to go through any process to break it down. The body absorbs it very easily. So it will cut into the cells across easily, rather than trying to strip this and dealing with all these bonding chemistry and all of that and then bring it down to a simple sugar. So people saying that it's just, they just say sugar, and because people use like sugar, and a lot of the times too, when you hear people talking about fructose, it's this man-made fructose that they bond fructose with glucose and some water, and it's a corn they get it from. That's a total different thing. But no real natural fruit sugar is gonna harm you though. That's not true. That's the most essential thing for cells. And that's why when you hear people talking about quantum physics, they will tell you that all these periodic table of elements actually came from pure energy. And fruits is the closest thing you have as a food to pure energy. So you can't go around that. It's just science. It's just scientific. I mean, I can't take away.
I can't overeat on mango. That's what you're saying?
No, I mean, you see, if somebody's having a problem with fruits, right, then it's not the fruit that is the problem. It is something that's wrong with your body. So fix that issue. So for example, some persons have issues because of eating protein and all these stuff. Their body get to a point now that they have issues absorbing stuff. And then they will ferment their sugars, leading them to yeast and all these stuff. But once you can digest, utilize, and so forth, then it wouldn't be the problem. So the fruits is still not your issue. And so don't blame the fruits. Don't blame the fruits. Fruits is the closest thing to fasting. And when you're fasting, you fast on fruits. And the whole rule is that fasting will bring repair. When a dog is very ill, you put a big plate of food in front of him. That's how you know he's ill. He's not really interested. You know, so he normally wants to eat grass and drink water. You know, and when people are sick, if you want to know, if you stand up at a hospital and you see people coming to visit their loved ones, you can stay right there and tell whose loved ones are most ill. Just look who's bringing in food. If you see somebody visiting and they're not bringing in food, it means their loved one is sicker. Because guess what? When people are really sick, in car accidents or anything, we put them on what? Trip. We stop. We don't let them eat. So it's fasting. That's the key. So the sicker you are, the less you're supposed to eat. And that happens in the hospitals. They don't give you food when you're really sick. If you see somebody start to bring food, you say, oh, he's getting better. Yeah. So I don't think we should worry about, there's no reason why we should really worry about our sugars, really.
So what
from fruit, natural fruit sugar.
So then because you said that it means something is wrong with their body and they need to look into that. But how else can they heal their body then?
Okay, so how they can correct that issue?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened is that this is where now we would really try to bring in some herbal formulas. And this is more what I'm calling herbal botanicals, some botanicals. And these botanicals, we're referring to them because they help with specific issues in terms of, you know, the best way to look at it is like you could go out there in nature and there are certain herbs out there. And when you look at the shape of it, it has the shape of a heart. It's not mistakenly just having the shape of a heart. When you investigate it, it's good for the heart. And you look at some stuff and they will have different shape of a kidney, of a lungs. And when you really investigate it, they will assist. So what happened is that when you're compromised now in terms of like your body organs, your pancreas, your that and so forth, that's when now you need herbal botanicals to assist you. So that's when you get medicinal in terms of with those herbs. So that's the best thing. So what happens is that if you're on fruits and you're using some herbal botanicals, then that will help repair. But you can't starve the body of the most essential fuel, which is fruits. And the next thing is that if you do that, then you're gonna end up with a lot of lymphatic stagnation. And that's the worst thing could happen to you. Why? Because fruits has the strongest astringents, they have the strongest flavonoids, they have the strongest antioxidants. And so you have a hard pump, but you don't have a limp pump. And your fruits is the one that actually come with that astringent that will now push through your cell acids after you're metabolized and waste byproduct, because your body has to create waste. Even if you're eating most pristine, your body is going to create waste. That's just natural. And when it creates waste, we have to exit that waste to the outside world. We can say this in a chorus that we do not recycle our waste byproduct. So all waste byproduct that is manufactured when we metabolize our cells, when our cell metabolize and create energy, which that's what your cell is doing every day. Your cell is metabolizing from it, gets oxygen and carbon, and it is creating energy for that cell. Then there's a waste byproduct given off. And the reason for that is that at that point, when carbon is being combined with oxygen, you're actually on a production site because you're combining two elements which end up with a end byproduct, which is the ATP, adenosine triphosphate energy. So in that combination of combining oxygen and carbon, that combination gives off that waste byproduct. And that waste byproduct must be exited through the body. It has to come out to the outside world. You can't contain your body's waste byproduct and think that it's going to help you. You can't contain in acids. Anywhere. If you look at your home, the minute you're trying to contain in your sewage, then it's gonna run you out of your house. So it has to go exit to the outside world. And that is the point. Your fruit is what make these waste byproducts get exited in the quickest time. So there's less stagnation. Your fruits make you more expressive than coagulative. So you cannot say, okay, I'm gonna starve the cells of fruits. You're gonna be starving it of the most essential fuel. You're also now going to stop the flow of lymph, which is that's problem. That's problem.
Wow, what a word. Oh my. At this time, because I know that a lot of persons have questions, and I don't want to be asking you all the questions. So
Okay.
if you have a question for Iwara, please, there's a question tab at the bottom of the screen where you see the question mark. You can put your question there so I can actually find them easier than having to scroll up and down. But in the meantime, while people write their questions, so are you of the belief that all illnesses then and diseases can be cured?
Yes, I am of that belief, but I mean, sometimes we are at a stage where it's best for us to go and recycle. Meaning, nature doesn't build on its weakness. So, like when you go to a dentist, the dentist will not just fill your teeth. It normally clears the area. When you go to, if you have damaged furniture and you go to a furniture man, he's going to sand down and scrape away whatever is not good, and then he patches it. You give your car to a body man to fix it up. You don't want, your body man is not going to, you don't want him to just be putting on putty and then putting on spray and that. You want him to sand it, strip it right down and then come back up. And that's how nature is. Nature doesn't try to build on its weakness. So what happens is that if it gets to the point where it can't regenerate, then, you know. So I think all of it can be, but it depends on what critical stage you allow it to get to. Sometimes it's just, you know, yeah, it's just bye-bye. I mean, it's just not anything, you know. But definitely, though, to be honest with you, as long as we when the signs come around, and you know, when we're traveling and we see our petrol light coming on, we never normally try to just you know, cut out the light out of the dashboard and feel safe traveling, because we know we're gonna run out of petrol. And how you solve that issue is you get petrol, and once you get petrol, the light goes. So my point is that a lot of the times when we see signs, we take what? We take some form of painkiller, whatever. That's like you cutting out the light out.
The lights.
Yeah. And so you're still gonna run out of petrol. You know, you numb the area, you numb the thing. And it's a communication. And when you numb it, you exacerbate the whole issue, because you're now, you know, procrastinating the inevitable. So if we do, though, just work whenever we get the signs, we decide on how to fix it, which is to get petrol and throw in there, and then all of a sudden, you know, the light gone. So that's how we want to approach it. If we do that, though, sickness and diseases wouldn't become a major issue for us. No, of course not. But it all starts from eating properly.
Okay. I'm going to put some questions up. Lachelle is asking, what is the role of nuts in diet? And I would also add nuts, right? Nuts and seeds. I will add seeds and beans as well. I want to know that.
All right. So the truth about it is that, right, I call those transitional foods. And why I say transitional foods is that everybody is not at the same place at the same time. And we don't generally get to the same place at the same time. And some people take longer to get to where they're supposed to be going. And so these, for the most part, your nuts and your seeds, I would say you have those when you're in optimal health, if you have to have them. If you're trying to detox, or if you're trying to get yourself out of any ailment or so, I would rather you stay away from your nuts and your seeds. Why? Because they are on the acid side of chemistry for the most part. Peas and beans, I really don't encourage those stuff, because they're full of phytic acids. The best way to get away with those things, though, is really to soak them and to sprout them. So if you're soaking and you're sprouting, then we're having a different conversation, because what you're really trying to do is trying to bring it back to a plant life. So that's why you're sprouting it, you know. And then if you even know, make it go back to, because it's consciousness, you know. And humans tend to want to think that we're the most conscious beings on earth. And at the same time, we don't want to eat the most conscious way. So it's consciousness. Fruit is higher in its consciousness than vegetables and so forth. So what happens is that when you sprout that bean, and now it gets to a plant life, you have now converted a lot of that heavy starch into a more simple sugar, you know. And so that is a way how you can have it. But in all honesty, you know, I would say, you know, persons, they were on beans and peas and all those stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's just a transitional food. I mean, because if somebody is moving away from meat, and then they have to use that to help them transition into, you know, less density and the magnetic builders, then that's we're gonna have to work with that, because we encourage that better than they're trying to make an effort. So we don't wanna kill the effort. We want to applaud it and encourage, you know, until they get to where they're going. But still, for persons really, and we're talking because sometimes
One
persons are
shot
there
I
who are
will.
poor.
The Instagram is going to cut the live.
Okay.
So I have to come back on. So everybody come back on. Instagram is going to cut us off in about 10 seconds. But everybody come on.
All right, no problem.